As many of you who watch this channel know, Sonder, Joey, and I decided to build a communal home together in the Finger Lakes of New York. And one of the first things we did when we closed on the land was join the GreenStar Co-op, which is the local grocery cooperative. Not only in the spirit of community and cooperative practices, but also because they have a great selection of products, namely from many of our local purveyors, which we found out comprises around 25% of GreenStar's sales, which helps contribute around $10 million annually to our local food makers. Though at a quick glance, they may look like just any other grocery store, as you start to poke around, you begin to see that they operate a little differently. Given that we're on our own communal journey, we've made it a point to seek out others who have done the same. So to understand how GreenStar started 50 years ago, what the co-op model is all about, and why communities benefit from co-ops in general, we caught up with one of GreenStar's council members, Dan Hoffman, GreenStar's general manager, Brandon Kane, and even managed to sync up with a few of GreenStar's local producers to hear their stories.
I joined the food co-op in 1971, almost 50 years ago, and I am now on the council, which is our board of directors, and have been off and on for a couple decades at least.
So you were here from the get-go?
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I can't claim to be a founder of the original co-op, but as soon as I found out about it, I joined it and then eventually became more and more involved.
So tell me how GreenStar first started back in the 70s, because it wasn't GreenStar Co-op at that time, correct?
It was not, right.
Okay.
The original name was the Ithaca Real Food Coop. This was a time of social and cultural upheaval, and people were looking for alternative ways of functioning in the world. And food co-ops, which had become popular earlier in the century, had a regeneration. There was a new wave of food cooperatives. And in Ithaca, there was an old style co-op that operated Ithaca's first supermarket, the co-op food store. But it was not really in tune with the times in the 60s and 70s. And it operated in a very conventional way, with a hierarchical structure, a fairly large store selling conventional products. And the people who were involved in the anti-war movement and women's liberation and related efforts wanted something that reflected their values and their concerns. So they created what we call a pre-order system. It had no storefront, it had no real overhead, it had no paid employees. The concept was that we could do it ourselves, and we could do it just as well or even better. We could get what we needed if we all pitched in. So the concept was that if you wanted to be involved, you had to do part of the work, and it was a very decentralized system. It did not have a hierarchy, it did not have a staff, and it was a weekly pre-order. So you got a list of what was available, mostly fresh produce, some grains and beans, and then the food was delivered a couple days later, a few days later. We picked it up, we divided it up. There were neighborhood regions made up of several households each, and it worked, not always perfectly.
Yeah.
So there was magic in it, and there was frustration.
Brandon Kane, who has served as GreenStar's general manager since 2004, met up with us before hours to take us through how the cooperative works and some of its challenges over the years, including what happened during the pandemic. For people who are completely new to the co-op model, what is a cooperative?
Dryly defined, but that's a good place to start, is that it's like an association of people designed to serve a need, right, or to meet a need. And it's usually an economic or a social, cultural need, something like that. In GreenStar's case, we were formed in 1971 under a different name at that time as a buying club, but basically it was a way to access fresh and affordable natural foods, or foods that just were not available in the area at that time. So,
Right, so they buy them in bulk or whatever, and they say, hey, we have all this
Yeah.
grain or seed or however it might be.
Right, so the
Yeah.
collective members of that association, so that association of people that is designed to meet a need is basically through a membership organization, essentially, right? And there's some fundamental principles there, like one membership, one vote, and it's democratic principles are guided by cooperatives, right? So essentially, there's other things I can talk about too, about how it differs fundamentally from like business as usual in America, right? But I think another key aspect is that the members do retain some control and autonomy over that business as opposed to a private business.
Right, you almost become like a shareholder.
You do,
in it,
as a matter of
right?
fact. Like in the eyes of the law, you really are, right? So
Yeah.
GreenStar has about like 13,000 members. I think about 12,000 are active on an annual basis right now. They vote for the board of directors to represent their wishes and ensure that there's oversight on the operations of the co-op. So that we stay true to our values, we follow bylaws and best business practices.
Well, let's fast forward until now, because 50 years have passed. People might have similar underlying sentiments to the government or whatever now, but it's different. And you had mentioned it came out of a way where you're against the hierarchy of the system and everything like that, against like packaged goods and products. But it's some of the stuff that the co-op has matured and you could maybe say gotten with the current times of what people are looking for. And you have that, you have your bulk, you have your grains, you have your fresh produce from local farmers, but you have other things too now.
Correct.
So how do you view that now, especially since you came in the early stages and you see that now in the current climate that we are in?
Well, for better or worse, I got to live through that shift, those changes, and they were not without a great deal of debate and difficulties.
Yeah.
So it was not a quick change.
Yeah. You even suggested some of those changes as well yourself,
I did.
right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And so the first big change was the establishment of something like a store instead of pre-order, where people could come and pick up goods. And that was resisted by some because it involved overhead. We had to buy equipment, and then there was a plea for some paid staff because somebody had to be in the store on the hours that it was open. And that went beyond the kind of 2 hours a week or expectation. So that was finally settled with the split of the food co-op into two entities, one retaining the pre-order system and one focusing on the store.
Yeah.
And that's when GreenStar came about. The store, when it was part of the original co-op, was called the Grain Store because there were a lot of grains there. And then somebody came up with the very clever name of GreenStar.
Yeah.
So that was a huge shift. And then there was an elected governing body, so instead of participatory democracy, we had representative democracy. And that was also hard-fought battle. And then with the growth of the store over the years, the co-op began to rely more heavily on experts within the co-op movement who said you would do better with a more hierarchical management structure and the general manager at the top. So we agreed to that, and that has changed many, many things. And our facilities have become larger over time and more expensive. And we've also, for multiple reasons, wanted to broaden our constituency. So originally it was people who were quite committed to the original values and concepts and were willing to put up with some extra challenges in order to live that dream. But that tended to exclude people who maybe didn't have as much free time in their lives. And as overhead went up, of course, prices went up. So it also may have excluded people who couldn't afford natural foods. And there was an assumption that GreenStar was for hippies and not for me if I'm not from that culture.
Right.
So there's been a conscious effort over decades to try to shift that image and be more welcoming and attractive to people from many walks of life.
Yeah. And I think you're achieving that because then, as I was sharing with Brandon, who's the general manager currently right now, at the outset, it may not look very different from any other grocery store
Right.
when you're walking in or experiencing it, but your founding values and your values are still intact, albeit in a different form.
Right. Yes, that is correct. I mean, the debates and the challenges go on today, and there are different opinions about some of the paths that we've gone down. And the differences of opinion are, I think they're challenging and exciting.
Yeah.
That's the real world. We have different ideas and different thoughts, and I am a fan of democracy, as participatory as possible. I do think we need a defined leadership that feels accountable, but I also think that we should be engaging as many of our members as we can.
Mm-hmm. So tell us what you have underneath your button down.
So the co-op has had multiple logos.
Yeah.
But my favorite was this one, which was created in the early 1980s. It's the Tree of Life, which is in the public domain, so we didn't have to copyright it.
Yeah.
We embellished it a little bit with our own features, like the star. It's been replaced by the red tomato, but I still recall it, and it's meaningful to me.
That's amazing. I love it. I love it, and I love that you're here for all the different seasons of the GreenStar Co-op. Yeah.
Thank you.
You've had to evolve, and I'm curious about that. I have so many questions right now because, I know. In one way, as you said, you're not the only game in town. There's way more grocery stores here. I mean, you have Wegmans, you have Trader Joe's that just opened. How have you had to evolve, and does the community even view you as different anymore?
One of the things that on a national level, cooperatives banded together, right? So there's these principles of cooperation, and one of them is cooperation among cooperatives. Mm-hmm. So we actually band together as a cooperative business association and created a services co-op so we could no longer have to operate autonomously as business units and have almost zero negotiating power with distributors and services,
so you
right?
Almost have
we became a virtual cooperative chain. We would have never been able to have been competitive, and I would guess that, including GreenStar, the majority of cooperatives would have gone out of business by now, just because the sheer scale that we were able to lower our prices and thus become somewhat competitive at that time.
Yeah.
We have some discount programs for food access, which is really at the heart of why a lot of people volunteered, was to get a discount. Mm-hmm. And so we created a very robust food access program, low-income discount flour program.
The flour program,
right?
Yeah.
And an extensive everyday low price program, basics. If you look throughout the store, there's like 1,000 products. We try to hit every category and have a low price option in every category.
Yeah.
And that really, that's one of the many things that we've done to focus on food access as an alternative to that program. So we had to shut our member labor program down as one of the many components that we had to basically close down due to the pandemic. And we're not sure when we're going to bring that back yet. As the economy slowly opens up and gets on track, the same thing with our business. It's like we're sort of putting ourselves back together and we're adding things back in as we can take it. We're still operating on a skeleton crew at this point.
So you kept on seeing the writing on the wall. I mean, and I didn't even say this, but you guys, this is your 50th year anniversary coming up.
Yeah.
So you've had to really evolve and see the writing on the wall and evolve again, and just be able to adapt to it. But one of the other things that I think that makes you different, and that I think is well articulated in your materials, is that you have give back programs back into the community, and I think there is naturally a feel good feeling in knowing that you have something that is uniquely different in your neighborhood as a co-op, and that you do have a say in it, and that is
absolutely
a unique business model.
Oh yeah, and I think it's the way to go for the future. I think and I also think it's truly revolutionary and necessary. And you hit on a lot of good points that I want to stress too. So not only we had to adapt, we had to make our parking easier to get to, we had to expand our product line, but we had to get to a certain size to reach an economy of scale where we could basically target lower all of our prices to be competitive and go for like that volume of sales as opposed to sort of a higher margin item by item sale. And that's really, unfortunately, that whole plan, I'm positive it would have worked, but we were already locked into moving right in April and May of last year, so timing couldn't have been worse. And we struggled severely, and we're recovering slowly and doing well now.
Yeah, and how did that work? Like, did you reach out to the community and say, "Hey, we're really struggling"? Like, what was the response
so many
during
things
COVID
there.
time? Yeah.
Well, I should say maybe a little bit about what makes us different first,
Yeah.
because I think that's at the heart of what really led to people participating and supporting us more, and when we called for it as well. Should we walk a little bit more?
Yeah,
too?
let's do it. Yeah. Be nice.
So our bulk section, I mean, this is one of our differentiators, right? Is that
Love the bulk
yes,
section.
and it's a favorite of many folks. But
I always love when I come on Thursday and I forget that you get the bulk discount.
yes, as a member, right? One of the other benefits of membership, not only do you have a vote choosing the board of directors and sort of choose the direction the business goes in, but you get discounts, and we're actually set up 2 years ago to issue a patronage refund to our members. So when we get profitable and we have excess profits, we'll be able to distribute those back. Like if you're familiar with REI, they're a prominent co-op.
Yeah.
So that is, I think it's at the heart of a fundamental difference between us and conventional businesses. We aren't driven to maximize profits to enrich a few owners or a few shareholders, right? Mm-hmm. We have to be profitable enough to cover our overhead expenses and invest in the future. But after that, essentially, basically we can use those resources to give back to the community, to lower our prices, and to pay an exceedingly good wage for the grocery industry, right? So we're a living wage employer. We employ over 200 people in the community. So those components and articulating that on a regular basis to the community, I think, has led to that consistent dedication we have from our members. And when we made the call for, hey, we're losing cash and we're struggling here, they really came back. That was around fall and the holidays of last year, and just started really buying at GreenStar and raised our sales to get us over a hump. We're still struggling and we're still on the recovery trajectory. It's steady, but it's slow. But we get more customers and more members every week.
My goodness, you have to be so nimble.
And it's razor thin margin.
And
we're always
in
on a
grocery
knife
stores
edge.
in general.
Mm-hmm.
So and then you have all this other stuff that's on top. You have the the 7 principles I'm looking at over there, which are
we have lofty goals.
You have lofty goals. You think things that you really want to follow. But I still think that it's one of those models that probably a lot of people are like, why don't we have this in our neighborhood? And have you had the experience of people coming to you and saying, I like this, I'm really influenced by this, how do I start?
Often, right? And I'm definitely a bit of a cooperative evangelist, because I that model, it's not even just, I think it would work in lots of lots of scenarios and lots of markets. I know it does, right? There's the Mondragon Cooperative in Spain. That's a massive, I think, $10 billion multi-industry cooperative. There's the Cooperative in the UK, which encompasses cooperative stores, healthcare, childcare, credit unions, et cetera. So, I think, that I know that could be modeled here, and it's really to the benefit of every community that they're in, essentially, for a whole variety of reasons, right? We employ folks at a living wage, which essentially means much more a local economy stays within and doesn't go get shipped out, right?
You support a lot of local farmers.
35% of our sales go to local and regional farmers. So that's a 300-mile radius from Ithaca, which then sort of speaks to, and one of the things we can tout for our efforts towards sustainability as well, right? Keeping things local, reduce transportation costs, supports the local economy. So between wages and our purchases to local vendors, local businesses, I think last year it would total just a hair over 10 million between wages and purchases from our relatively small business. It's awesome.
GreenStar gives a viable place for local farmers, food makers, and craftspeople to sell their products year-round. What are you delivering today?
I'm delivering naturally fermented sauerkraut, beet kvass.
Is it made right here?
We're right in Cortland. We're just about, like 30 minutes away.
And then is GreenStar kind of one of your main places?
It
that you
is.
sell here?
Yep. GreenStar was one of our very first accounts. They've been supporters from the beginning.
When did you get started?
We've been doing this for about 8 years.
Okay.
And we actually even make deodorant on the side, and they sell that too.
So you're in the beauty aisle, and then you're in the fermented food aisle.
Exactly.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And then, are you one of the founders, or have you been working with them?
Yeah, I am. My partner Dave and I have been doing this for about 8 years, and we work with a lot of local farmers like Plowbreak and Main Street Farms in Cortland. And right now we're in the midst of pickle season, but yeah, we love working with the local farmers, and we love having a place like GreenStar to support us and help sell the final product. This is our most local specialty. It uses wild ramps and dandelions from our farm.
Oh, wow.
And back in the day in this area, there were a lot of fermentation. There were a lot of kraut factories.
Yeah.
And they've all since gone. So it's exciting to have, to be bringing that back to this area.
Yeah, and also you're doing something really unique, like a ramps and dandelion is not what you typically see.
Yeah.
You would see your cabbage,
right?
Or maybe your carrots and things like that. And you probably do some of that, but this is definitely more unique.
It really puts that local spin on it.
Yeah.
We like doing that.
Cara Cusalito of Plowbreak Farms came by with her newborn daughter June to deliver their weekly produce.
We've been selling to GreenStar probably for 7 or 8 years.
Okay, so a good portion of the time that you got founded. And what did you start with? Like what produce did you actually end up starting with?
Probably cherry tomatoes were the first thing that we sold to GreenStar.
Okay.
Yeah.
And obviously we just saw this delivery. You've expanded quite a bit.
Yep.
How much do you sell to GreenStar comparatively versus to other places around here?
GreenStar is one of our bigger accounts.
Yeah.
But we also work with a couple of distributors and then individual restaurants as well. I like working with GreenStar because it's my co-op. I love the co-op. We have a good relationship with GreenStar where, like, if we have a surplus of a crop, we can call up Andrew or Steven, who are the produce buyers, and say, like, hey, do you guys want to do a deal on, like, tomatoes this week? It's the height of tomato season.
Yeah.
And we can also contract with them, so we can plan ahead. If they know that they can buy, like, 30 cases of cucumbers every week through the summer, then we can plan for that and plant it. So it's a good relationship to have, like, with a large buyer like GreenStar, because we both kind of benefit. Generally, there's more business, and our problem is if we don't have enough crops to sell, because we have such a strong local market in this area and such strong local foods interest. So that's a great problem to have. And I know a lot of the other farms in the area sort of have that same problem. A grocery store like GreenStar has helped us professionalize the farm, and it just sort of opens up like a whole extra market of where we can sell our produce, which is really beneficial to us. And
right, because you didn't set it up as retail, like you're not doing the farmers market.
Right, we don't do farmers markets. We do a CSA. We feed about 75 families with the CSA, but we're mostly wholesale. And it's, like, we don't sell to Wegmans or other grocery stores. We sell to GreenStar, and GreenStar is really, like, set up to work with local buyers, and that helps us a lot. GreenStar's mission is to support local businesses, and it shows, like, they definitely support us and many other farms too. We're not the only farms that come here with a truckload of vegetables a few times a week. So, What else, June?
Even Samantha Abrams, the co-founder of the national snack brand Emmy's Organics, which was also recently acquired, got its start at GreenStar Co-op. So when you first started out of your home kitchen, did you just sell to friends and family, or how did it work?
We did in the very beginning. I remember we had a little Etsy page, and then we really knew right away that we wanted to try to put our product into stores. And so that's when we started approaching local stores like GreenStar.
Okay, so did you get started with GreenStar?
So they were one of our very first accounts, and I remember I was so nervous going because we hadn't, sold into stores before. And so I brought a price sheet, and I remember the buyer there at the time, he's actually allergic to coconut. And so, but he was like, this is great, we'll take it. It was like the easiest thing that I've ever done. They were so supportive, especially of like a new local company. And so they were just so excited to have something local. And also our products were gluten-free, and that, especially then, they wanted more and more products like that.
Well, it's really nice to see that you of course you started with your friends and family or whatever, but that there was an outlet. And you said you were a little like nervous when you first like went in there and scared because you just had your line sheet and everything and you didn't know what they were gonna say, and he's allergic to coconut, and you're like, oh my God, no, he's not gonna be able to taste my product.
Yeah.
But like there was a store that you could go to actually sell into, at least to start.
Absolutely. And I don't think every community or every town really has that, you know, so that's something really special that we have here locally. It's a really supportive store.
The support from the co-op and their general success has given Emmy's Organics the opportunity to hire more people locally and employs many Karen refugees from Myanmar. As they continue to expand, she hopes to provide even more job opportunities in the area. And so you've stayed locally, and you've obviously hired locally as well then.
Yeah, so it's been amazing for us. You know, something that was really unintentional in a way when we started the business was that we were going to be able to hire so many refugees in our community. And so to be able to provide living wage jobs has been a really, an unexpected kind of honor in a lot of ways. And it's become a really special part of our story. And, you know, having a really inclusive work environment is super important to us. We have everything translated for our staff, whether it's things that are printed or we have translators at all of our meetings. And yeah, we love having this sort of internal community as well.
And did it start with, somebody from that community actually coming in and just saying like, I have all my friends and
yes,
family.
Literally. Yeah. I didn't know about the amazing Karen community here in Ithaca. And it was many, many years ago when we had this one woman named Da come to work for us through like, the Youth Employment Services program here. And she came and was like, this is the best job I've ever had. You know, because we do like normal work days, you know, we don't do night shifts. And, we have a really nice environment. And so anytime we had hiring needs, she would say, okay, well, my neighbor, my cousin, like anybody. And so then all of a sudden we were like, wow, I didn't realize what a beautiful, like rich community of refugees were here in Ithaca. And so it's been really cool just to like learn about everyone's stories and how we can be a better employer for everyone here.
And I also just like want to reiterate too that it's just, you're supporting these farmers. They may not actually sell outside of the region either. And like, when we go to places and actually see farms, like they're here and they exist because of places like you. Right. Or like the farmers market
and CSAs, which are their awesomely popular bread and butter.
I think the idea of a cooperative model is so unique for some people to even think about, and to know that you have a grocery co-op or any kind of co-op in your community is so revolutionary, it feels like. Even though you've been around for 50 years, it still feels so revolutionary.
Yeah, I still think that, I'm like, if only everybody understood, if you shop here, you're contributing to like hundreds of living wage jobs, and you're getting people fed, and our prices are in most cases lower than anywhere in town. If that really that succinctly was understood by our community, like we would see a tremendous outpouring. But it's really hard to get that message out there, actually, and to overcome, historical impressions and perceptions. We're always fighting against that.
But
it's working.
And that you also support like a lot of the local farmers, which I mean, you can see. I mean, you have
it's nonpartisan. It crosses all. What I mean? Like that's I think one of the biggest struggles I think we have is like that sort of identity politics and partisanship. The cooperative it transcends all of those, right? This is a place where everybody can come and everybody can afford to eat, and of course, cooperatively and respectfully, and we hope that rubs off on everybody when they come through the door as well.
Yeah. And so, where do you like to see GreenStar head, hopefully in the next, 50 years, now that you're celebrating your 50th anniversary?
Right. Well, I don't expect to be here at the 100th anniversary, but I guess none of us can predict what's going to happen. Personally, I would like to see a stronger local and regional food system. And I think that GreenStar is part of that. A significant part of it, but there are many other components, and we can find more ways to support local farmers and producers and to have more of our food needs satisfied from this region. I think that we need to de-emphasize long distance transport of food. We need to be more self-reliant. Climate change is going to have all kinds of impacts, but the closer our food supply is to our mouths, the better. So I hope that GreenStar will be fully engaged in that and be seen as a leader.
So if you're in the area, be sure to pay a visit to the GreenStar Co-op. And if you're a local, consider supporting by shopping at one of their locations or by becoming a member. And if you're enjoying these stories, be sure to like the videos and subscribe to the channel. We're reinvesting 10% of our own Google AdSense revenues on the Flock Finger Lakes channel back into this region. So your support all around could go a long way. See you in the next video.